let's just start like setting some of the basics. So, you work with hundreds of retailers nationwide. When you're starting to look at a retailer, when you're starting to work with someone, normally what is the like base level financial state that you see them in?
So usually when they're starting out, they have some money raised, so they have some capital behind them, but they need to have a good structure and a good plan. They need to have good projections to understand what their numbers are going to be, and then they have to work around the margins after the fact. So typically, a good operator would have a net profit margin of about 15% or more. Uh, Anything below that, they're sort of treading water. And that 15%, that includes regular salary. A lot of people, they'll take management salary above and beyond just so they have more take home in the beginning. But we would back that out because that's
Yeah.
obviously, that should be their net profit at the end of the year. They should be paying people who are working for that salary versus, being in that management position. Uh,
Yeah.
so 15% is typically that range. I've seen some operators that are in the, 20-25%, but they're doing exceptional.
Yeah. And when you talk about net profit, right, you're talking about making sure management salaries are in there, talk about labor, marketing, product expenses. How do you think of taxes? You mentioned taxes, 280 taxes, that as net of the profit or are included, excluded. Like, how do you think of that 15%?
Oh, that 15% is after taxes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
so that's the take home.
So a pure like at the end of the day, 15% is overall in the take home. When folks aren't at 15% or they're at negative 15%, um, generally speaking, your experience, what is causing that?
So there's three costs that are probably the biggest costs of any cannabis business. It's usually their cost of their product, their advertising spend, and their labor. So it's important for us to look at that and see, why they're spending so much in comparison to their sales. I'll give you an example. With labor, typically we'd like to see that labor between 14 to 18% as a percentage of sales. So if your sales are 100,000, you want to be paying your labor at 14,000 a month, 18 to $18,000 a month.
Do you
If
think of that
that's
as pre-discount or post-discount?
net sales, so post
Net
discount.
post-discount. So post-discount sales, labor 14 to 18%.
Exactly. Yeah, that's shifted over the years, but at the current moment, that's where we're at, 14 to 18%.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, if it's above that, we talk to them and say, hey, you either need to increase your sales or you need to cut some hours with the staff. A lot of times, people will open the store with 2 or 3 staff, but then when we look at the numbers, those first 3 hours that they're open, there's very little sales, and maybe you don't need that staff to be there. You can do some creative adjustments where that, one of the staff, rather than coming in at 7 a.m., can come in at 11 a.m. and work, half a day because their presence during those 4 hours isn't equating to any new sales. There's enough people on hand in order to handle those sales that are currently there. And then additionally, it's really important to train the bud tenders to do cross-selling. There's a lot of different reports out there on the POS system that you can create dashboards with, different APIs with the Power BI. There's one that we've put together. It's called Connected Sales, where it tells you which products are bundling well together.
Mm.
So, for example, there'll be a client, there'll be a specific flower brand that, we see that people, when they buy this, they also buy this pre-roll. So now it could be part of the sales process that, hey, anytime someone asks for this product, suggest the other one as well. And, 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to say no, but that one time they say yes, over the course of a week, adds a lot to the
Funny.
to the,
Yeah.
to the overall average ticket and to the number of transactions.
Yeah, 100%. And then product, or you said advertising expenses. So what normally is a percent of post-discount sales do you recommend folks target for that?
I will keep it pretty lean in the beginning, and then sometimes deliveries have to have more because they need that big network of range of deliveries. But I'd say for storefronts, it should be 5% or less.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a lot of times what people do is they'll sign up for some advertising, subscription, and they'll get the highest tier of it where it has a bunch of features they don't even use. And they could easily downgrade that to a much lower tier. I remember I had a client that was paying, I think, somewhere around 12,000 a month for weed maps, and it wasn't really helping them that much. And they downgraded their weed maps where they were paying only 3,000 a month and their sales remained the same. So it didn't have much of an effect. It's just paying attention to these little details.